So that's all we have as far as an overview of the program, and we wanted to leave plenty of time for questions, and I see that there's already quite a few in the chat, so I'm going to stop sharing, and we'll go ahead and just let's get through the chat questions first, and then we can go to people unmiking and just asking questions. So, will there be a physical person to assist the requirements, or will this be the owner's responsibility? So, yes, we do have we will have all sorts of technical assistance available. Initiating the practices on your parcel of land will be the responsibility of the landowner. However, we can certainly provide information about getting you connected with the expertise in order to implement the practices, but that will be the responsibility of the landowner to communicate with those, if those service providers, schedule with them and see that the practices are implemented on their land. And again, we can work with you on that, but that is the responsibility of the landowner. Is there a handout for the other commodities? Absolutely. And Gracie, thank you for responding to that. Can you opt out of the research component for the forestry like you can with other ag commodities? Yes, certainly if there was an issue with including the research component, we would certainly work one-on-one with the landowner to find a situation that worked best for them.
Can I add something about that? So with the ag commodities, one of the things that we are asking all of our participants is that we have researchers come out from SC State or from Clemson to collect some soil samples from your property. And we want to do that at all of the participating farms. And we also want to be able to do some soil collection at those. The more involved data collection at the farms, which is using some special equipment to measure greenhouse gases coming out of the soil, that's only going to happen at a small number of farms, and that's going to be worked out between our researchers and those farmers. And then also with the landowners, it will be more of a smaller number of properties. So, you're not going to have researchers out on your forest land all the time. All of that will be coordinated with you and beforehand and everything else. However, we do, we want to try to take advantage of this, this opportunity where pretty much these are all experimental sites, and we can get out there, measure some of these effects of the different practices on your property, and see what works best and where and how it's different across the state and with different types of forest lands. So I hope that you do, want to help out and let some researchers and technicians come out and check out your land and do some measurements out there.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. And I will also add to that, the surveys that I mentioned are a requirement for all participants. So that's something that you would have to agree to participate in from from the beginning. So yes, I will just go ahead and create a PDF of the presentation I just showed and include that in the follow-up email. And let's see here.
I'll have to call.
These are all okay. PDF comments. Okay, so the information. Okay, when is the rollout? Right now, we're in the process of gathering names of potential participants and organizing that information. So here's a good time to repeat that one thing that we will we will be needing to gather additional information in order to sort all the landowners into those implementation areas that I mentioned, so that we can kind of see where we're at as far as rolling out the program. So our best guess is that we will have this information organized and rolled out, and participants notified of their inclusion in the program sometime in June. And then we will be working more individually with each of the landowners. So hopefully we're kind of on the back end. We're still hiring a few key personnel that will be involved in helping implement the program across the state. And so that's in progress. Long answer short, be patient with us as we put all this information together, but we are, the intention is to be rolling out the first parts of this program this summer. And I am posting the link to that Qualtrics survey if anyone wants to go ahead and fill that out. If you want to just click on the link and have that ready, so after we end here today, you can fill that out and we'll have that information. There are some additional questions at that survey that we will need from everybody. I will also include that link in the follow-up email, so do not worry if you can't access the link in the chat right now. How many hours of training and where will the training take place? I don't have a number, but the training will work to develop a training that is reasonable, but complete, so that you have all of the information you need. There may be multiple trainings. And right now we're saying that we will likely organize online and in-person trainings in order to accommodate everybody who's involved in the program. Can a single parcel be selected for more than one program, i.e. improvements and maintenance? There are multiple practices. There are practices that might be incentivized, multiple practices that might be incentivized on a single property. So we're going to work with landowners individually to determine what the landowner goals for the property are and what practices would be appropriate given our goals for the Climate Smart program for that property. Does the incentive payment cover what it will cost the landowner to implement requirements? This is not a reimbursement program. It's an incentive program. So we feel that the incentives, we feel, and we also know that the incentives will likely more than cover the cost of of the expense in order to implement some of these practices. However, we are not collecting receipts. The incentive is a single flat payment per acre. And so again, that would be up to the landowner to determine what the best course of action would be as far as selecting, a service provider to implement those practices on their farms, in comparison to what the incentive is. For the longleaf, will this be available above I-20? Longleaf regeneration is available anywhere that longleaf will grow. So that's again, case by case basis. Certainly there's, I'm going to actually leave that question to Dr. Heisel, who's on. Patrick, if you want to jump on and maybe address that a little bit more specifically.
Well, the answer is it depends. right? That comes down to our agents actually going out, meeting with the landowner, determining where the property is and what is actually possible, and if it makes sense to have longleaf pine there or not. But that's why we're meeting with landowners to determine what actually makes sense on individual properties, and then provide a suggestion what we can incentivize, and then have the landowner work with our team to make this happen.
Great. If I am getting ready to clear cut 20 acres and thin 20 acres in the next month, will these acres be eligible for the program if done prior to approval? The answer to that is no. You must be enrolled in the program prior to any practices being implemented. So, reach out to us individually. We can discuss, that, but certainly we're not suggesting that anybody change their implementation plan for their own property for this program, since we have not selected participants yet. But certainly if you have a longer conversation you'd like to have about that, you can reach out to the program team, and we can try to figure some things out in regard to your timing. What is the cost share percentage for practices incentives? Okay, so just to repeat that, we had the incentive is a flat per acre payment. It's a one-time payment over the course of the project. So for instance, the thinning incentive, if you were to thin, if you were to be enrolled in the program for the thinning incentive, that's $100 per acre. So if you had 20 acres enrolled in the program, that would be a $2,000 incentive payment. How soon will we know if we will receive site evaluation? As I mentioned, we're working through a bunch of information, and we're hoping to be reaching out to folks by June to start scheduling those site evaluations. Asking for a neighboring landowner, is legal title to the land required for participation in the program? The family land is still in her deceased grandmother's name, not heirs. Dr. Buck, would you like to address this question?
We have talked a little bit about property that doesn't have a clean title or is heirs property. For some of our participants, we'll be working with the Center for Heirs Property Preservation based out of Charleston. With this, I think that we would want to talk to this landowner, and it is your responsibility to have one person who will be responsible for taking the payment, however that works, and then implementing the practices. However, and we are, that you can maybe contact the Center for Heirs Property Preservation if you feel like they might be able to give you a little advice about how to approach this. We would prefer for for all of our properties to be clean title and everyone on board. However, we are not going to give any legal advice about that, so we recommend that you contact an organization or something like that. It doesn't exclude, we just anyone from participating, but that will be on the landowner's side of things.
Okay, who certifies practice implementation for payment? And that would be, the answer to that is, it could be multiple people, it could be any number of people. It will likely be one of the extension associates who are currently going through the hiring process to work directly with the forestry folks in the program. However, Clemson has an extensive extension network, and given the broad scope of the program, we may be relying on some other extension personnel to, to visit and, verify the practices have been implemented. So in that being said, I think I did make a comment about, not needing to provide invoices or receipts, but definitely do plan on keeping good records of the practices that you've been implementing, so that, it's possible that we could verify certain practices through receipts instead of a site visit. So that's just, plan on keeping good records throughout this process as well, which certainly most people would be doing anyway, but I don't want to, we're not going to be requesting receipts, but that might help in the verification process. Is there a list of practices? Yes, Yvonne, I will include the PDF of the presentation I just gave, and all the practices are listed in there. And if you have questions about any one of those individually, you can certainly reach out and we can have a longer conversation about what's involved. And do I need to have a management plan before I'm accepted? You do not. In fact, if once the site evaluation, once you've been asked to participate in the program, then at that point you would take into consideration the incentives, the incentive practices that you would be offered through the Climate Smart program, and then incorporate them into your management plan. So we will be asking for a management plan after enrollment, but certainly that might look a little different depending on which incentive practices you would be invited to participate with.
Let me just cut in here real quick.
Okay.
I think this may be something with terminology. So we do not actually require a formal management plan. We ask for a plan when you implement the practice that you get incentivized for, but we do not require you to have a written forest management plan, let's say from the Forestry Commission or from a consulting forester for your entire property. We just ask for a plan. What are you going to do, and when are you going to do the practice that you get incentivized for?
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's a terminology I didn't realize was more specific to the industry. Would the payments work like NRCS? You get paid for what you do. If you're enrolled in this 100 acres and actually thin 80, do you get paid for the 100 or the 80? You get paid for the 80. So incentives are per acre per practice. So if you, and that's certainly, we anticipate that being something that comes up. You would be invited to participate under a certain acreage, but if for whatever reason you weren't able to implement that number of acres, then we will incentivize you for the acres you're able to implement the practices on. Go ahead.
And when we, along with that, things change, and that is fine. When we get people and we give them, we enroll them for this number of acres for this practice. If that changes, then we would want people to let us know that they're going to scale back their acreage or something like that, so that we can open those acres up to someone else maybe. We want to be sure to enroll as many people as we can under this pilot project, even though it's limited by acres and funding. But yeah, and we understand that things will change and we expect that. However, you will only get paid for your acres that you actually implement the practices.
Can you enter into the program after any NRCS cost share programs, i.e. CSP, has ended for the landowner? Yes, you can. They just cannot be in conjunction with one another at the same time. Are there any invasive species such as privet removal practices prior to preparation and planting? Dr. Heisel, would you like to answer that question?
All right. So when it comes to tree planting, we do have funding in there for different site preparation practices, including fire, chemical, mechanical site preparation on the light, medium, and heavy side with different incentives. What needs to be done would basically be, again, on a case-by-case basis, and we would have to figure out how this fits within our incentive schedule on the site preparation side. But we do not have specifically any particular funding assigned just for invasive species removal. But this could fall within the site preparation before planting. But again, that's a side-by-side evaluation that's required then by one of our extension agents or associates.
Okay. Thank you. Going back to the clean title subject, what if participants are leasing the land, or do you have to own the land? We can certainly work within lease agreement situations. You know, that's something that we're doing in the other commodity programs as well. And here is what we will say. It is up to the leasee and the landowner to make their own arrangement. One person will be identified as the recipient of the incentive payment, and that is where our involvement in that in that ends, and the rest of it would have to be worked out amongst the private parties. Okay. Carrie, I'm going to do this last question and I'm going to turn it over to you. A portion of our land includes 17 acres of second generation loblolly pines that should be thinned in about 3 years. Should we give our information to you so that timber consultants can be notified about us so they can lump us in with other small parcels? That is an excellent question. And the answer to that is yes, please do let us know that you have a smaller parcel and you are interested in possibly being involved in that cluster situation, and we will we'll make a note of that. And that's a great question. So Harry, I'm signing off. And thank you everyone for your participation.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. I don't know the answer to this next one about conservation easements. I think it would depend on the agreement for that property. Kelly, do you know before you sign off, or maybe Patrick?
Conservation easement, would this impact the eligibility? That's something that probably Patrick has more input, but if you have a conservation easement, you would need to work with the organization that you have made the easement arrangement with, and they would be able to inform what is allowed and not allowable in that situation. And
I think when it comes to these practices, if you are legally able to make these changes to your property by yourself, then you will be, then you can do that and qualify for an incentive if you are a part of this program. So, I think if you cannot, do some of these practices on your property because of an easement or because of any other parts of that, then your lease agreement or something like that, then, that is something that you'd have to work out with how that property can be used. All right, so what would be the advantage for the landowner for this program versus a cost share with the NRCS? So that the difference with this one is with the cost share, you submit your documentation of your expenses. And with this program, it is just incentive, so that once you are verified that you have implemented the practices on the acres, and with your extension agents and our other coordination team, then you just get your incentive payment. And you could use that to have paid for anything. You know, it is meant to offset these short-term costs with implementing the practices, but you can use it on, it could be what you've used to pay, you know, for your equipment, for, you know, anybody that you had to bring in to do the work, for the materials, for labor, for the seedlings, anything like that. So ours is different in that we want to be able to show that you implemented the practices as agreed upon with the extension agent that you are going to implement. But you don't have to submit the documentation and things like that for this program. All right. What is the deadline for signing up? So we have had a lot of interest in the forest component, but we are, you know, still taking on interest forms. So if you have some forest land that you think you would be interested in participating, then you can fill out our interest form on our website. I'm going to put it in there. It's just climatesmartsc.org. And I didn't go into you can fill out an interest form if you haven't already. I think that all of you have done that already. But if there are other people, and then you let us know a little bit about yourself, about your property, and then we'll start contacting people. So it is a pilot project. You know, we hope that this will lead into, you know, some longer term, bigger projects where we can enroll more people. But we will be, you know, selecting different sites to visit and starting to put together our enrollment and coordinate that with our extension folks and our researchers. And it will just take place over the 5 years. So we will probably, because forests are a little bit different, these are, you know, a longer term type of implementation, and they'll just take longer to schedule and get everything in place, that we're just going to start like rolling people, doing a rolling enrollment through our over the time here. And be sure that we get as many people and hit our target acres for forests. So the deadline for signing up is, you can always submit an interest form, and anyone else that you know can also submit the interest form and let us know that they have property they might want to participate, and we can get in touch with them. Let's see. May I amend the previously submitted interest form to add additional properties? So we have and I think Kelly will probably send it out again, like a questionnaire that is kind of like confirmation of your acreage, and to get a little, you know, just a little more information about everyone's properties. I think with that you can, let's see, put it in the chat here again. You know, let us know what types of where your properties are and the acreage and all that for those. Let's see. Disqualify a landowner. No, if you have the forest land and it is, you know, what the sites that we're looking for, and we have available acreage, then we want a good, you know, representative, very broad group of people. We want to see different types of forest lands. We want different soil types. We want different areas around the state to do some good science there, and also to engage lots of different people. So we don't have an income cap. We ask in the interest form, if you filled that out already, we ask some information about the landowners if you want to provide that information, but there's not an income cap.
I have a question.
Sure.
You kind of touched on this earlier, when you're talking about, I guess, if you don't have a clean title to the land and all of that. But I was just wondering, our land is split between three siblings, and I was wondering if they should all, if it should be enrolled kind of as one unit, or if each, like landowner should enroll themselves.
Well, you have to have a minimum of 20 acres, so I think that might be, consideration of like doing it as one group. Or separating it out. But it is a little more of like, if you have the one parcel, and that makes up your acreage, then we need one person who's going to be the vendor, who is pays everybody, coordinates with everybody else that's involved. For that.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, everyone gets along well. It's just, yeah, I was just wondering if it needs to be, submitted separately. Thank you.
Yes. Good question. Let's see. I think Vivian, you have a hand up?
Yes, I just want my clarification. I want to make sure I understand that you say this is it's a pilot program and that you're accepting all application. And I'm asking because I have a cost sharing program under the NRCS. Should I still go ahead and fill out the form, or do I wait to come off of the cost sharing program? It just for clarification for my part, or will there be another time to sign up for this program?
So we'll be, continuously enrolling people over 5 years. So, and you can't, because this is a federally funded through the USDA, if you are doing the same practices on the same acreage, then you can't get that cost share from NRCS and also receive the incentive payments through this program. So I think you would have to kind of wait until you are finished with the NRCS payments and then enroll with us. And so, and you have 5 years to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. We have a question. Can an LLC that owns a property participate? Yes, we just need like that one entity to be able to be the vendor, to be the person who is kind of responsible for coordinating, communicating with us, our researchers, our extension, and who that payment goes to. So we imagine that, even with our farms, there will probably be LLCs that are actually the vendors. Yes, you can do, if you are doing something on your acres, this was in the comment box about the NRCS, and it is not the same practices. So we have all of the practices that are in here, have their CPS number, their conservation practice standard. That comes from the NRCS that's associated with those. As long as you are not being enrolled in that cost share program on those acres for those CPS practices, then you can enroll with us.
I think you answered the question, but I was asking for the CSP practices that you have. You're saying that if it's not on the same track or the same land, then we can apply to you.
Right. You just can't get paid twice for the same practice on the same acres.
Okay, thank you.
These are great questions, and we will also be kind of incorporating these into our FAQ sections as we go. Oh, let's see. Again, here is our website you can go to. You can get some information about how to contact any of us, just climatesmartsc.org. We try to make it good, kind of easy and memorable. And, but we are available, and you can email Kelly or me, or there's a little form on there, and that you can submit any questions to. And we are so excited that there's so much interest in these programs, and we're really looking forward to getting everything started. So
I may have missed the PowerPoint. Will that be available, or can you send it out?
yes, I think Kelly is going to turn that into a PDF, the actual presentation document, and then share that with all of you, so that you just have a copy of it.
Thank you.
Let me see here. We got a couple more questions coming in. One of the questions on the questionnaire is the acreage mix pine with long leaf, and do you want to convert all to long leaf? Since we have none now, let's see. We have no long leaf, but want to plant this species if it will grow in our area. I answered the questions no. Should we have answered yes? I think that, in part, this is to get a little more, the questionnaire is to get a little more information about everyone who is interested. But that it will be, this is not going to exclude you. This, you still will, there still will be like a site visit and a little more communication and coordination with your extension. I think it's all right. Like that will be just a conversation that you have when you start working with your extension folks. Will I be able to enroll more than one parcel? Well, we just have the 100-acre max, and we want to keep that to per landowner. We want to try to give opportunities to as many people as possible. So, we want to keep it at 100 max for everyone. Let's see. All right. Well, do we have any other questions? These have all been great. We appreciate y'all tuning in today. And we will be in touch. If not, I'm going to go ahead and close out the meeting, and we appreciate everyone here. Thank you. All right. Great.
Thank
Y'all
you.
have a good afternoon. Thank you.
All right, you too.